The night Lena found out the truth, she was wearing her oldest cardigan, the gray one with the fraying cuffs she kept meaning to throw away but never did. She'd gone downstairs for a glass of water because she couldn't sleep, and the kitchen light was already on. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Through the wall, she could hear her husband's voice. Low, careful. The kind of careful that meant he didn't want to be heard. She stood very still. Mom, I told you. The timing has to be right. A pause. Because if we push too early, she'll figure it out. You know how she gets. Lena pressed her back against the wall. Her heart was beating in her ears. She recognized the voice on the other end of the call, even through the tinny speaker. Her mother-in-law, Marguerite. Even muffled, her tone had that particular quality Lena had learned to dread over 5 years of marriage. Precise. Satisfied. Like a woman who had already decided how things would go and was simply waiting for the world to catch up. Her parents are signing the papers next Thursday, Marguerite said. That's when we move. Lena's hand went cold around the glass. Her parents, the papers. She knew exactly what papers. Her mom and dad had spent the better part of a year sorting out the sale of their property in Nova Scotia. 32 acres outside Truro that had been in the family since her grandmother's time. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. Enough for her parents to retire. Enough that Lena had sat at their kitchen table in October and watched her mother cry quiet, grateful tears about not having to worry anymore. She'll want to put it into their retirement account. Her husband, Joel, said, We just have to be there when they're deciding what to do with the rest. Leave that to me, Marguerite said. Claire trusts me. She always has. Claire, her mother's name, said in her mother-in-law's mouth like it was a door she already had the key to. Lena didn't move for a long time after the call ended. She heard Joel set his phone down on the counter. She heard him pour himself a drink. She heard him walk into the living room and turn on the television. Some late-night channel, with an infomercial playing, the sound of a cheerful host talking about a product nobody needed. She walked back upstairs without the water. She sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. She did not cry. She was too cold to cry. She and Joel had been together since she was 26. They'd met at a friend's wedding in Banff, and he'd been charming in a way that felt effortless, which she had mistaken for sincerity. His mother had welcomed her with open arms, which she had mistaken for warmth. It took her 3 years of living inside that warmth to understand that Marguerite didn't open her arms out of love. She opened them the way a trap opens, wide and waiting. The first time Lena had really seen it clearly was 2 years into the marriage, when Marguerite had suggested very sweetly that it didn't make sense for Lena to keep her job at the architecture firm, now that she and Joel were planning to start a family. You wouldn't want to be distracted, she'd said, pouring tea, not looking up. And somehow, Lena had agreed. She'd handed in her notice the following month. She told herself it was her own decision. Joel had never contradicted his mother, not once, in 5 years, not about anything that mattered. Lena had told herself that was just how he was, that it didn't mean anything. Sitting in the dark now, she understood exactly how wrong she had been. She thought about her parents. Her dad, Walter, who drove a 20-year-old pickup truck and wore the same 3 flannel shirts on rotation, and had spent his whole working life as a high school shop teacher because he genuinely loved it, loved the kids, loved making things with his hands. Her mom, Claire, who kept a garden even through the hardest winters and sent Lena care packages with handwritten notes, tucked between the tea bags and the local jam. They were the kind of people who still shook hands on a deal before the paperwork came. They trusted people because for most of their lives, it had worked out fine. They trusted Marguerite. Lena sat with that for a long time. She did not wake Joel. She did not call her mom. She lay back on her side of the bed and stared at the ceiling and made herself breathe slowly, evenly, because she understood, with a clarity that felt almost physical, that the one thing she could not afford to do right now was panic. She had to think. In the morning, she made breakfast. She made it carefully. Toast, eggs, the coffee Joel liked, strong and black. She set everything out on the table the way she always did. She asked him how he'd slept. He said fine. He asked her the same. She said the same. She watched his face while he looked at his phone and she thought, he has no idea that I know. That was the first thing she had. She kept going to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, the one in the parking lot behind the library, where she always bought preserves from the older woman with the red hair. She kept making dinner. She kept doing the things she always did, but she also started paying attention in a way she never had before, or maybe in a way she had stopped letting herself do. She started noticing how often Marguerite called, how Joel would step out of the room to take those calls, how he would come back after and be just slightly more cheerful, just slightly more attentive, in a way that now read less like affection and more like management. She started noticing the finances. They had a joint account, but Joel handled most of the transfers, and Lena had let it happen gradually, like so many other things. Now she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop and her own notebook, and she went through everything slowly, carefully, the way her dad had taught her to read a blueprint. One section at a time, looking for where the lines don't match up. There were things that didn't match up, not large amounts, nothing so obvious that you'd catch it at a glance, but patterns over time of money moving in small increments to an account she didn't recognize. She wrote everything down in the notebook and then took a photo of every page with her phone and emailed it to herself from an account she created on a library computer on a Tuesday afternoon, while Joel thought she was at a yoga class. She called her sister, Daphne, who lived in Kelowna and who had never liked Joel, not from the beginning, and who had the particular quality of someone who had been right about something painful and had been gracious enough to never say so. Lena called her from the car, parked outside the grocery store, engine running. "I need help," she said. "I need a lawyer, and I need you not to say anything to Mom and Dad yet." Daphne didn't miss a beat. "Okay," she said. "I know someone. Her name is Paulette. I'll send you her number right now. Thank you, Lena." A pause. "Are you safe?" "Yes," she said. "I'm fine. I need to do this carefully." "Okay," Daphne said again. "Okay, I've got you." Paulette turned out to be exactly what Lena needed, sharp, unhurried, with an office in a low building near the river that smelled like old wood and good coffee. Lena laid out everything she had, the notebook, the photos, what she'd overheard, the account numbers, the timeline. Paulette listened without interrupting. When Lena finished, she was quiet for a moment. "All right," she said. "Here's what we're going to do." They talked for almost 2 hours. Lena drove home and made dinner and sat across from Joel at the table, and he talked about a project at work, and she asked questions about it, and she thought about everything Paulette had told her, and she felt for the first time in weeks like she could breathe. She still hadn't told her parents. That part was the hardest. Every time she talked to her mom, she had to hold the whole thing behind her teeth and pretend it wasn't there. But Paulette had been clear. If Lena tipped her hand too early, before everything was documented and the legal groundwork was in place, she risked Joel and Marguerite moving faster than she could. She had to wait. She had to be patient. She had to keep making breakfast. 3 weeks before her parents were due to sign the papers, Lena drove to Truro. She told Joel she was going to visit her parents for a few days because her mom had been having some health stuff and she wanted to be there. He said of course. He understood, very supportive, the way he'd learned to be when it didn't cost him anything. She sat at her parents' kitchen table on a Thursday evening while her dad made tea and her mom set out a plate of shortbread that had gone slightly soft, the way they always did in that kitchen, in that particular tin, and Lena put her hands flat on the table and said, Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen all the way through before you say anything." Her dad sat down. Her mom stopped moving. Lena told them everything. She'd had Paulette on the phone as backup, waiting, in case her parents had questions she couldn't answer. She didn't need to call her. Her dad asked 2 questions, precise, practical, the same way he approached anything that needed fixing. And then he sat back and looked at the table for a long moment. "I never trusted that woman," he said finally. "Not about Joel, about Marguerite." Her mom reached across the table and covered Lena's hand with hers. She didn't say anything for a while. Then she said, "What do you need from us?" That was it. What do you need from us? No blame, no falling apart. Just, what do you need? Lena had to press her lips together to keep from crying. "I need you to not sign anything until I tell you it's okay," she said. "And I need you to let Paulette look at anything Marguerite's people send you." "Done," her dad said. They had dinner. Her mom made the soup with the dumplings that Lena had been eating her whole life. Her dad found a Leafs game on, and they watched the first period together, and Lena sat between them on the old couch with the worn armrests, and she thought, "I almost lost this. I almost let them get this too." When Lena got back home, she had one more conversation to have. Paulette had advised her to do it in a neutral location, but Lena decided she wanted to be in the house. It was half hers. She'd earned the right to stand in it. She waited until Sunday morning, when Joel was making coffee and still in his sweatshirt, off guard in the particular way people are off guard at home on Sunday mornings. She sat down at the kitchen table and folded her hands and waited until he turned around. "We need to talk," she said. He must have heard something in her voice, because his expression shifted. Just slightly. "Yeah?" he said. "I know about the account," she said. "The one the transfers have been going to. I know about your mother's plan with my parents' property. I know you've been moving money. I have documentation, and I have a lawyer, and she's already filed. The coffee maker beeped into the silence. Joel stared at her. She watched something move across his face. Surprise first, then calculation, then something that might have been the beginning of a performance, a defense, an explanation. She'd seen that look before, she realized. She'd just never understood what it was. Lena? He started. I'm not asking you to explain, she said. I'm telling you where things stand. My lawyer will be in touch with yours this week. He set down his mug. You don't know the full picture, he said. My mom was just trying to help. She thought if the money was structured differently. Joel. She kept her voice even. I heard you. I was standing in the hallway and I heard you both. 3 weeks ago, I heard exactly what you said. He went very still. I've been careful, she said. I've given this a lot of thought, and I need you to understand that I'm not angry. I'm not going to fight with you. I'm just done. She got up from the table. She'd already arranged to stay with a friend, Meg, who had a spare room and a dog named Buckwheat, and who had dropped off a key 2 days before without asking a single question. Lena's bag was already in the car. She'd packed it that morning while Joel was in the shower. She'd been methodical about it, practical, the way her dad had always taught her to be when you were doing something that mattered. The important documents. Her grandmother's ring, the cardigan, worn cuffs and all. Joel didn't follow her to the door. She heard him sit back down at the kitchen table. She heard the sound of the chair scraping against the floor. She walked out into the cold morning air. It was October, just starting to tip into the particular gray chill that settles over that part of Ontario before the snow comes. The leaves on the maple at the end of the drive had gone deep red. She hadn't noticed until just now. She sat in the car for a moment before she started it. She thought about all the mornings she'd made breakfast in that house. All the time she'd told herself it was fine, that she was managing, that she was handling it. She hadn't been handling it. She'd been disappearing slowly, in a way so gradual she hadn't seen it happening. She started the car. The months that followed were not easy. Divorces rarely are, and Joel had resources, and Marguerite was exactly as tenacious in a courtroom context as Lena had always suspected she would be. But Paulette was better, and Lena had the documentation, and the timeline, and the testimony of her parents, and the account records, and the patience she'd built over all those weeks of making breakfast and not flinching. The financial misconduct piece took time to resolve, but it did resolve. Joel was required to account for the transferred funds. Marguerite's intervention in her parents' property sale was documented and addressed. Her mom and dad's retirement remained intact. The day the final papers were signed, Paulette shook Lena's hand across her desk and said, "You handled this about as well as it can be handled." Lena drove home, to her apartment now, a one-bedroom in a building near a good grocery store and a park where she'd started running in the mornings. She called her mom. "It's done," she said. Her mom exhaled. "Come for Christmas," she said. "I mean it. Your dad's already talking about which room to fix up." Lena laughed, which surprised her. "Tell him don't go overboard," she said. "I just need the bed and the terrible lamp." "Too late," her mom said. "He's already at the hardware store." She stood at her kitchen window after they hung up, looking out at the street. November now. The first proper snow of the year coming down in the particular soft, sideways way it does in that part of the country, unhurried and indifferent, just covering everything evenly. She thought about the woman she'd been, standing at the bottom of those stairs in her old cardigan in the dark, holding a glass of water, hearing something that would change everything. She'd been so frightened. She hadn't known, yet, that frightened and capable could be the same thing. She'd figured it out. She put the kettle on. She found the tea her sister had sent, some local blend from Kelowna, lavender and something citrus, and she made herself a mug and sat down at her own table, in her own kitchen, in the quiet apartment that was entirely hers. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, it was warm.